Well, Razorback fans, it's been a lot about the positives, but now it looks like there might be a concern. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I know I sure did, is just enjoying the time before it gets crazy into football season. And I want to remind everybody that these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. So each and every day that goes by, we start to have different fall camp updates. And, a lot of you who, have been commenting or tweeting at me or, whatever, you have talked about the things that you're excited about and the things that you can't wait to see and things that have really your interest. And, okay, well, I can't wait to see what the quarterback situation is with the backup. I can't wait to see what the wide receivers look like once they get on the field, maybe the tight end position and how it'll be utilized. Can't wait to see the defensive backs and how they've been improved upon so much over the past season. And, all these different things which are warranted, which are fair, which are great, which makes sense. But with the scrimmage that happened on Saturday, this past Saturday, Sam Pittman met with the media. And he actually shared a legitimate concern. Because Sam Pittman, I think he's met with the media. This is the third press conference he's had since fall camp has started, or at least been underway. I think he met right before it started, then right in the middle, and then here. I think, something like that. But for the most part, he really hasn't expressed any major concerns. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact he hasn't seen it yet. Like in the beginning part, they're still going through the preview of it all, and then you go through the warm-ups, you go through where everyone's kind of not wearing full pads and going 100%. So there's some things there too. But according to Sam Pittman, when he was meeting with the media, he said, quote, "Our protection has got to get better. We have got to give him, KJ Jefferson, more time. Devin Manuel did not play today. He's out for maybe 2, 3, 4 days, something like that. Our pass protection, obviously Chamblee stepped in and did a nice job, but they have some pretty good pass rushers over there, and we have to get better over there as well." So it wasn't just like when you hear that, first off, it can be looked upon in certain ways. It can be looked upon as nothing but a simple, well, that's the defensive line that's looking really good. The pass rush is really good. Things are looking up and doing, such great things there. Normally, you could maybe take that side or at least take that opinion. I'm not, and I can't. And the reason being is because we're talking about Sam Pittman here. Sam Pittman, offensive line coach, been the best offensive line coach in the country for many years. He knows what it looks like. He knows what it's supposed to look like. He knows what it's supposed to be when it gets to the SEC and how, like, the level that it needs to be at. And so when he comes out here and starts saying, "I'm concerned," then I'm concerned. It's almost something we take for granted, and I've done it too. Like, I've been one of the ones that said it more often than not, that when you have Sam Pittman, you don't have to worry about the offensive line. It's always going to be good. And I'm not saying that the offensive line is going to be bad, so don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But it is one of the things that I really just assume it'll be fine. It'll be fine at that point. And you're still talking about, 19 days at this point in time? 19 days until the season starts. So you have plenty of time to get it fixed and to get it right and to get it figured out. But when you're having to replace essentially 3 offensive linemen from last season, you had some guys coming out of the transfer portal, and you had some guys that are talking about true freshmen or at least really young guys like Chamblee. You're going to have to be able to get those guys ready first and foremost, because you can have KJ Jefferson, you can have one of the best running back groups in the country, you can have wide receivers that are going to be really good. You could have tight end position that's seems to be across the board much better. You can have all that stuff, but if you don't have an offensive line to protect, to block, to help, none of it's going to matter. KJ Jefferson does not need to be running for his life every time. And he needs to stay upright more so than anything. Like, you can't have that. You can't have it to where, KJ's making mistakes by throwing short, quick passes before the receivers are ready just because of these defensive linemen getting after him or sending blitz packages, whatever it may be. You can't have it. And so to hear Sam Pittman actually come out and say, yeah, I have a concern about this, well, I do too. I do too. Which, again, it's about how you look at it. You can look at it a glass half full and a glass half empty. You can look at it in the way of saying, okay, the offensive line's a problem. We're in trouble. This is bad. We may have a problem. Do we have enough depth? Do we have enough talent? No, it's something that can even be fixed. Like, you can start, not say panic mode, but you can start looking at it to where it becomes like weighing on your mind of like, this is bad. This is really bad. Or you can take the approach, maybe in the more bigger picture, of saying, okay, so after a week and a half, roughly, of fall camp starting up, it took a week and a half to get to the point and going in a full-fledged, the very first scrimmage, full-fledged scrimmage, tackling and everything, full pads. It took till then to say that there's one thing that is a concern. Because really, that's been the only thing Coach Pittman has talked about specifically is him having a concern about. Now, it's not like he said everything's perfect and all these players are just great and there's no weaknesses. He's not saying that. But when it comes to him being honest about it and saying the word concern, that's just that one thing. And with that one thing, because of the coaching you have not only with Sam Pittman, but with Cody Kennedy, and the depth that you have and the time that you have, it can be fixed and it can be remedied and made right. Now, I'm not going to add any more players or better players, but for the concerns that they have, at least with pass protection, I mean, that is something that they can do. That is something that they can fix. And it is something that you have to have fixed. Because, again, if you don't, the SEC is going to eat you alive. We know what this league is about. We know how talented they are. And like, I feel like there's still some nightmares about, of course, his name's escaped me now, the LSU defensive lineman. You know what I'm talking about last year. He just destroyed Arkansas. I think he had like 6 sacks, something like that. But you know what can happen if you have some offensive line issues, especially in pass protection, and how the difference it can make in a game. And the same thing goes for Arkansas, like on the defensive line. It's like, you know that they can have some players that can make a huge difference and can completely change the game just if they're getting after the quarterback. So I'm a little, see, again, I just hate using the word like concerned. Because again, if Sam Pittman's using it, I feel like I can use it, but I don't want concern to come across as like, oh, well, this is bad. This is terrible. It's not going to, it can be fixed. Like, it's not going to be awful. And I feel like it is going to be all right. It is going to be all right. But again, I'm looking at it in the more optimistic way. I'm looking at it as, hey, this is the first thing that Sam Pittman's had to say that's concerning. I think Arkansas is doing okay. They could be doing a lot worse, especially given the circumstances of like how much turnover that they had from last season and some of the stuff they're in place. Now, this is what to look for. If Sam Pittman, after this next Saturday, and he meets with the media and says the same thing about the offensive line having problems with pass protection, that's when we can really start to be like, oh gosh, this might be a problem. Like, that's when. But you got to give them a chance to fix it and to go through the adjustments to make them better. And if Sam Pittman comes out on Saturday and says, you know what, I thought our offensive line did a much better job. I thought that KJ was, in good positions to stay upright, stay healthy, and blah, blah, blah. If you do all those things, then it's going to make everybody feel so much better about it, myself included. So let's see what they do. Let's see what they do with the time that they have, because we know that's the season's so close. Like, as my little sign says, 2 Saturdays away, and it'll be here before you know it. Folks, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You just go to LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. You check it out there, and you can look for jobs for yourself. Be able to find some of the best and open opportunities that you can see. Or if you're someone that's trying to hire someone, you can get the best qualified candidates that you want to talk to and faster and for free. That's the best thing. They have simple tools like screening questions, making it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to actually hire. So it's why small businesses really have ranked LinkedIn jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And they want to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I actually had a lot of you reach out to me and was really wanting me to discuss this in depth, no pun intended, about the Razorback football player that left the team, quit the team. And it was A.J. Braithwaite, who was the defensive back transfer from Western Kentucky. And after the first week of fall camp, he officially announced that he's no longer with the team. And what's weird about it is that this is his sixth and final season of eligibility after having 5 years with Western Kentucky. He's 6 foot, 195 pounds. He committed to Hogs back on May 13th. He played in 34 games at Western Kentucky. He had 99 tackles, 4 for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a sack. He earned his best season was in 2021, where he had Conference USA honorable mention honors. So he was limited to just 8 games of action last year due to injuries, but owns 48 career games played, which is an absurd amount if you really think about it for a college football player. But yeah, it's crazy. So I was reading this on hogsports.com, and I didn't even think about it, but Braithwaite actually recorded a tackle against the Razorbacks in 2019 when Western Kentucky killed Arkansas, and that ended up being Chad Morris's final game. So at least we can thank him for that. But either way, he just left the team. No real explanation, at least not at this point. No warning about it, just quit. Now, I'm not going to be the one that dogs on anybody, and at least anybody personally, for the decisions that they made, because it might be something to where, it's his final year of eligibility, and, maybe felt like there was not a way that he was going to see the field very much this year. And because of the transfer portal already being closed, it's like if you drop down a division, you can play right away. So maybe that's what he's going to look at. Or he can return to Western Kentucky. I actually think that's a rule that you can have where you can actually go back to the Hilltoppers. Don't know if that's a real possibility, but he could, I guess. But, from what I understand, he really wasn't even part of the team. Like, I'm not saying part of the thing. He wasn't on the field. Like, in practices, nobody saw him. He didn't stand out. He didn't really, nobody really saw anything from him. Didn't get to see him make any plays. Didn't get to see what he was out there doing. So, I hate to sit here and be like, it's no big deal. Because I don't think it is. Like, obviously, if it was someone that was going to be playing this year, it would have been a much bigger deal. But if you're talking about somebody that couldn't even crack the 2 deep in the secondary, Arkansas secondary, then, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Maybe it just wasn't something that was going to work out. Now, Arkansas actually had a player last year on the defensive line leave after the first week of fall camp. So it's not unprecedented. It has happened before. But it's not something that I think anybody needs to look too much into. It's not, so this is like, this is bad. The kid got screwed over. And I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just more about fit. It's about opportunity. And if this was a sophomore that did this, I'm like, okay, dude, you're really going to waste a year of eligibility just to leave? Like, that's weird. But since it's his final season, like he has no more eligibility left, he's probably like, okay, well, I'm not going to spend my final year of eligibility not even seeing the field. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to try to play somewhere else. At least that's what I would think he would do. And so he's moving on. And you got to wish him nothing but the best of luck. But I don't see it anything as like a coaching, like coaches were bad to him, or at least from what I understand. Sometimes these things don't work out. Sometimes the players just need something else. And that's what I got from him. They're still trying to figure out a lot of the issues in the secondary and, figuring out where people are going to be playing and not playing and all of that. But, yeah, pretty wild times. It's pretty wild times, especially when you got so many, new faces. It's hard to keep up with them, honestly, but it's still pretty fun. So we'll talk about what's good and bad. Give me the stuff that's good with Razorback practices and fall camp here in just a second, folks. This episode is brought to you by Markel Insurance. From Fayetteville to El Dorado and everywhere in between, Markel has been helping Arkansas small business community for over 30 years. Markel is a global specialty insurer with a truly people-first approach, and to them, insurance is more than just a piece of paper. It's a promise to help people get back on their feet. We spend a third of our lives working, so on-the-job injuries can be expected, right? You work hard to build your business, so it's important to make sure that you and your employees have the right insurance coverage. So whether you're new to the business or celebrating 25 years, whether you have one employee or you have 1,000 employees, Markel aims to understand your workers' compensation needs. So find a local to independent agent to get a free workers' compensation insurance quote today at markelinsurance.com/lockedon. That's MARKEL insurance.com/lockedon. Markel, insuring America's small businesses since 1930. Insurance carrier, coverage, dividends, and services availability may vary by state. Markel is a registered trademark of Markel Group, Incorporated.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We talked about the concerns that Sam Pittman has with his pass protection in the offensive line. We've talked about A.J. Braithwaite leaving the Razorbacks, and so it's almost like, the first two segments here, people may be like, well, that's kind of a negative way to start a Monday. After we hear about, concerns and problems, and then have to hear about a player leaving. I don't like that. Well, I don't think anyone likes it, but it's the reality of where it's at. So, looking at it in its totality of what's looking good and what's looking iffy or bad or however you want to put it, I will say that there are things on the team that are not looking one way or the other, or at least has not been said to be looking one way or the other. There may be a position group that's not bad, but they haven't been standing out as incredible either. So it's just kind of there. So it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can be a variation of a few things. And I think that that's what happens with Razorback football this year so far. Because from what we understand, starting with what's looking iffy is the pass protection for KJ Jefferson on the offensive line. I think that's a thing. On the scrimmage itself, Sam Pittman said that there were way too many penalties, especially with the offensive line, which is an issue, getting lined up correctly. You're going to have pass interferences. You're going to have holding calls. You're going to have stuff like that happens in games, just the way it is. But the one thing that you can't have and should never have and will make a coach pull their hair out is when you have pre-snap penalties. When you have guys that can't even line up in the right formation or don't know where they're supposed to be or delay a game, whatever it is. That's problematic. Again, first week, first practice, it's fine. It can be fixed. It's fixable, very fixable thing. So I don't want anyone thinking that this is going to be something that carries over into the season because I don't know. But since it's so early in the fall camp, you just can't freak out about it and start saying how awful it is. But those are the things that have been pretty problematic. The penalties, the pass protection has been suspect. The nickel position, they've been trying to figure that out on the defensive side, and I think that they've moved towards that a little bit more, from my understanding. It's kind of like they're putting Snacks Johnson out there, which is the Baylor transfer. And they call it the hog position, I guess. It's a nickel position, hog position, whatever it is. So they moved him over there. They're trying to figure out who's going to be the best suited for that spot. Because Nudie, Dwight McLaughlin's still out there. You got Keon Stewart, Jalen Braxton, Jaheim Singletary. You got some guys that are, working through the mix. So they're just trying to figure out the way of what the rotation will look best there in the secondary. So those are the things I would say that are iffy right now. But things that are good, and again, things that are standing out good, not just saying that they're good, standing out good. I think that from Sam Pittman talking about the tight ends and the linebacker position, those are great. And I think that there were not a whole huge bar to climb over to get to that point because we know that the linebacker position got emptied out this past season, and really wasn't great overall. Like you had Drew Sanders, who was great, but Bumper Pool dealt with injury, and you had Pooh Paul, and that was it. So you lost two of those guys, and you just had Pooh, so you had to rely on some transfers, and it looks like it's been coming along really well. And same thing with tight end. You got a really good group of tight ends in there. And we're going to hear from the tight end coach tomorrow. So really looking forward to that, or I guess today. Looking forward to that. To hear what he has to say about everything. So you got the tight ends in the linebacker position that's been good, standing out good. And I would even go as far as to say the wide receiver group as well, where, you've had Andrew Armstrong, Isaac TeSlaa, Isaiah Satania, like they've looked really good, and they've been making some great plays and some highlight plays there during practices. So that's a really good thing too. And then the other thing I would say would be the defensive ends for Arkansas. Defensive line's been good, but like the defensive ends have been really the strong point, whether it's Landon Jackson or Jeff Coates. I guess I'd throw in the defensive tackles in there too. I shouldn't like act like they're separate, but Cam Ball has been good. It's good seeing Torian Carter back into the mix. He's been doing really good. So the D line's gotten a lot of compliments. But then after that, it's kind of like just, whatever. And maybe it's because it's like with KJ Jefferson, a quarterback, it's good. Like you're not going to hear it be like, oh, it's incredible. Because it's like, no, we already know it's good. Same thing with the running back position. It's like you got guys that they like, and maybe they've seen AJ Green run and they like that, but it's like, it's already good. Everyone knows that it's fine. You don't have to keep beating that dead horse. Special teams is one of those deals to where, you hear about it and you think about it, but it's like until you actually see it in action, it's hard to know one way or the other. But overall, I feel like that's where Arkansas stands. They got some really good stuff going on, some really good improvements, and they got some concerns. And it's a matter of, can you get to game week where you got your depth and your two-man rotation, or at least your two deep figured out? You got your team not committing so many mistakes on their own self-inflicted wounds when it comes to penalties and bad plays. Is everybody on the same page? And number one, can you stay healthy? Because I saw that Sam Mbake got hurt. And we don't know as far as the extent of that, but he was somebody that was really doing well in fall camp. Looked like it was something with his leg, maybe his knee. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, but you got to stay healthy. Everybody. Can't afford to lose anybody. Got to stay healthy across the board. But we'll know a lot more as the week goes on, and I guess we'll see how it all plays out. But appreciate everybody listening in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we will keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.